Our scripture readings are first from Isaiah 53, verses 3 through 9 and 12, and then Matthew 26, 45 through 49. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And who can speak of his descendants? For he has cut off from them the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was stricken. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. And now from Matthew, verse 26. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of the sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
I'm Judas. Just to clear up a few things, I want to let you know a little bit about myself. I'm what you call a zealot. I'm passionate for my people. For the history of Judah, Judas. Makes sense. I also believe that the name of God is a very holy thing. So I won't ever say it, but I say Adonai, which means my Lord. So if you hear me talking about Adonai, I'm talking about my Lord. And also, I'm worried that you might not understand if I say Mashiach. That means Messiah. It means the one who's going to come and help Israel rise up and overthrow our Roman oppressors. I'm zealous for my people because I'm Judas for Judah. And then also, I want to let you know that my rabbi, his Jewish name is Yeshua. You might call him Jesus, like the Greeks. We speak Aramaic. We are a Jewish people, so I call him Yeshua. And in the beginning, we couldn't miss. I knew what Yeshua was up to as soon as he came around. You see, in the beginning, everything was doing good. Everything was great. And he was starting to collect his disciples. And we knew from early on that Yeshua was going to be something big. So he called me, and I knew exactly why. 1, I'm good with money. 2, I'm good with people. I can network. I know who's who. I elbow with all the right people. And 3, he knew I was passionate about our people and our freedom. So when he called me, I'm like, all right, Yeshua, let's go, let's do this. And then he had his other disciples, there were some fishermen, there was a tax collector. We were kind of a motley crew of sorts. I didn't know exactly what his plan was and how we were going to do all this together. But when he talked to me, even if there were a bunch of other people in the room, it was like it was just him and me, It was like he was there just for me. And I thought, I know this guy's the real deal. And when he asked me to help him, I said, sure, but I insist. I have to carry the money bag. You don't want any of these other fishermen or other people, hanging on to it because who knows what might happen. I am the biggest one after all. So I carried the money bag. I made sure we got food. I made sure our sandals got fixed when we were out walking around, make sure that we got that taken care of. I made sure we had places to stay. I knew all people in all the towns, so I made sure we had the nicest places for the least amount of money that we had to spend. And if there was something left over, I'd get myself a little something nice. But it was good, See, we were riding high those first couple months. Jesus started doing all these miraculous things, and everybody came out. There were literally thousands of people following Yeshua, right? They would come up to him and be like, I want to touch his cloak. I want to hear him speak. And every time he said something, every time he did something, everyone was just amazed. It was like he had the power of Adonai at his very fingertips and could bring it to the people. And I thought, this is what God really wants. This is what Adonai really has planned for us. So my pops used to tell me, he used to say that when Adonai would come, he'd come with power and authority. So when Jesus would sit down and he would teach about the Torah, when he would teach us about the prophets, he turned it up on its head pretty much, and he started teaching things we had never heard before. But all of a sudden, it just made sense. And we were all left scratching our heads thinking, why didn't we see this before? Obviously, we'd gotten things a little bit wrong, but for the most part, we were on the right track. Yeshua would sit there, he would tell us what to do, we'd read it, and we'd say, oh my goodness, yes. Yes, 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 yes. And people started following. People started coming. News started spreading out all over the place. But there were some people who came, and they just wanted to pick a fight with him. They tried to argue like they're legalese, and they tried to argue all these other different ways about how they should get what they want. And Yeshua would always turn it around on them. And suddenly, Yeshua was right, and they were all wrong. And there were a few times I had to be like, okay, Yeshua, why don't you take back the condemnation a little bit? The Sadducees who run the temple and all the temple system, maybe let's not trounce them quite so hard in a debate. Some of the Pharisees who very much are into practices of how they wash the cups and how they walk and how they do all these things, let's not maybe insult them too much. After all, if you're the Mashiach, if you're going to help us rise up and overthrow our Roman oppressors, we're going to need as many allies as we can get, am I right? So we were good. Jesus had thousands of people following him. He did water into wine at this wedding. It was fabulous. But no one really knew about it at the time. We all heard about it afterwards. It was amazing that he did that. But I was there when he fed the 5,000 people. There were thousands of us, hungry, and he just says, let's make bread and fish. And all of a sudden, everybody's eating. It was amazing. And then, oh my goodness, there was this rich young ruler who came. And when this rich young ruler came, we're like, oh my goodness, Jesus, this guy could bankroll us for like years. You have to make this guy get on board. He was a pious guy. He was a holy guy. He told Yeshua, I have fulfilled all the commandments since my youth. And Yeshua sat down with him, and he said, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? So Yeshua said, sell all of your possessions and give the money. I was waiting for it, and give the money to us so that we disciples can use it for our cause. Use it to help the people rise up. And Jesus said, you need to give all the money to the poor. And I said, whoa, Jesus, wait a minute. We don't know what this guy's going to do with the money. We don't know what these poor people are going to do if you just give them cash. We need to be the ones to control it. We need to be the ones to kind of figure out who gets what and how best to get what we need. He insisted, so it's like, okay, there are other people out there. We went over and visited some of Jesus' friends' house, and while we were there, this one woman named Martha and Mary and their brother Lazarus were there. And Mary brought out one of her most prized possessions. It was this jars, stone jars, beautiful, ornate, exquisite, nicely carved. And inside there was this fancy perfume. Now, I don't really know much about different types of perfumes, but I knew that one was exquisite. And when we were visiting, we were eating, she breaks the jar. She breaks the top off and starts putting the perfume on Yeshua's feet. And I'm thinking, we could have sold that for who knows how many days' wait. Like, that was like a half a year's salary right there. And you're perfuming up Yeshua's feet? Like, there are bigger things we need to be worrying about right here, Mary. Come on, get with the program. And Jesus turns and rebukes me and says, she has done what is right. It is good for her to do this. You won't always have me, but you will always have the poor. And that made me wonder, what are you talking about? You won't always have me. You're the Mashiach. You're the one who's going to lead us. You see, as he went about, he started saying some things that were kind of hard to understand. You thought you know where he was going, and you were right there with him. Like, okay, I get it. We're with you. I know what's going on. But then all of a sudden, he would turn around and say something like, he's going to die, and he's going to get killed, and the future is all uncertain, and there's going to be these different things going on. That kind of made me wonder, like, where exactly are we going with this, Yeshua? What exactly are we doing here? Some of the Sadducees got pretty mad at him at one point. They came down, and they would say, listen, if you want to be right with Adonai, if you want to be right with your holy presence, all you have to do is come to the temple, give your offering, do a sacrifice, and the temple where God's presence lives will be bestowed upon you. The Pharisees, on the other hand, they were all about practices and how you wash and the ritual things that you're supposed to do and the letter of the law. And they thought the heart of worship is about how we live our lives every moment of every day. So if you keep yourself holy every moment of every day, and then go to the temple to do your sacrifice, that's the more important part. The rituals are the heart of worship. And Yeshua came into all this, and he said, you know what? The heart of worship is not just in the temple, and the heart of worship is not just in what you do every day. The heart of worship is in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And these sorts of things just kind of blew my mind. I was like, I kind of get what you're going, but you seem to be putting yourself in the place of Adonai. You seem to be assuming that you are the great I am. And he kind of dropped some of these hints, like maybe he was the son of Adonai, but he had these powers. Imagine if we had him to lead the rebellion. He could feed an army. It's like, hey, all right, we got 20,000 soldiers. Everybody needs some food? Bam. Jesus would have everybody fed. We want to strike fear into the hearts of our enemies. Jesus. Bam. All right, we're done. And now all of a sudden, you know, here we are, victorious. Roman Empire is gone, and Judah can rise up again, and all Israel can be at peace. That's all I really wanted. You see, we've been living under occupation for so long. The Romans took everything from us. They would take our homeland, they would take our farms, they would take our crops. They would come in, they would kill our people. They did respect us a little bit. They said we had an ancient deity, so they said that we could still practice our own worship. But we heard of lots of other peoples that the Romans just slaughtered. Outright, gone, dead, no more. And we didn't want that to happen to us. But I knew with Yeshua we could make it happen. But there was one time when I asked him, is now the time? Is now the time that the people are going to rise up? Is now the time, Yeshua, that we can take up swords and take up arms and go out and fight? And he just kind of was wishy-washy about it. And it crushed me, you know, because I'd been hoping for so long that we'd been building for something great, but the farther along we got, the more and more alienated he became. The temple hated him. The Sadducees wanted no part of him. The Pharisees all thought he was a crack job. all these other people that he had tried to heal, they all were talking crazy talk, but they were all the poor people. They were all the people that had been crippled and lame. What kind of clout could we have? A big army with no military training, no strength of arms, no financial backing? It seemed like Jesus had this heart for these people that had no power for themselves. And they were not going to make a lasting impact for him. I was going to make the lasting impact for him. If he would just trust me. But he didn't. And I could tell Sanhedrin were getting really mad. They were making plans to arrest all of us, squash us out, threaten us. So I said, okay, if it's them or me, I pick me. I pick me. I thought I knew what we were about, but he's not about what I'm about. So I went to the Sanhedrin and I told them, what will you give me if I turn him over to you? Because I knew Passover was coming soon. I knew it would be just the disciples, just us. As soon as I figured out where we'd be eating, I'd sneak away. I'd say a little something, excuse myself. And then I'd find a couple guards, just a couple, we'd come in discreetly afterwards. And they could get Jesus. I figured maybe that could get him away from the rest of the disciples and give them a chance to recognize that they'd been duped. That Jesus' ministry wasn't really what they thought it was about. And that maybe Adonai had some other plans for him. So I called him up. I made plans, went to the Passover dinner. Yeshua was sitting there. We were eating. We were dipping, eating. And then he looks at me and says, one of you will betray me. And I knew he meant me. But no one suspected me. They all started arguing with themselves, and all the other disciples were like, is it me? Is it me? Is it you? Why would we betray you, Jesus? Why would we do it? They didn't know what was really going on. They didn't really understand what Jesus was doing. They didn't understand what needed to be done. I did. I knew what needed to happen. So Jesus looks at me, and it felt like some sort of cold spirit came into me, and he said, you do what you need to do. And that look of disappointment. So I left. I went and I found the guards. There were more of them than I thought they needed. I mean, gosh, he's just one guy. But they came out with this whole battalion. Temple priests, temple soldiers, the whole shebang came out. Jesus had gone up the mountain to pray, and then we found him. And I had told him, you'll know it's him because I'll kiss him. I'll grant him with the kiss of peace. He is my rabbi after all. He taught me about what the scriptures mean. He taught me about what it means to live a life devoted to Adonai. He taught me about what it means to have compassion. He taught me all these things, but that time's done. We're done with that. So we found him up in the garden. He and his other disciples had all fallen asleep. It was the middle of the night. So I went up to him and I put my arms on his shoulders, drew him close, and I kissed him. I said, Rabbi. And he knew what was going to happen. And he looked at me, not with anger or with malice. He just kind of looked at me like he knew it was coming. But the disciples didn't know. So Peter gets up with a sword and lunges at the guard and cuts one of their ears off. And Yeshua says, stop, put your swords away. He heals the guard's ear. And he says, get this, those who live by the sword die by the sword. I knew right then when he said those words, he was never going to free our people. If he's not willing to stand up and fight for himself, if he's not willing to stand up and fight for his disciples, to fight for his cause, to fight for his people, why would he ever do anything for me then? Huh? So I said, fine, that's it, we're done. I was glad he was gone. He was done. And I didn't want to have anything else to do with him. So they took him I thought originally they were just going to talk to him, beat some sense into him and scatter the group and say, don't do this anymore. You're messing up with everybody's way of life. Stop it. But they really did want to kill him. I didn't want him to die. I thought maybe he was just a little misguided. He had the wrong perspective, and maybe once he sat down with the temple priest and they could kind of have a little talk back and forth, Yeshua, maybe we think you'd be better off doing this, and he'd say, well, maybe we could do this, and they could compromise, or maybe they could just say, take your ministry somewhere else, not in Jerusalem, not in Judea, you can go somewhere else. But they didn't. They turned him over to the Romans. And the Romans are going to kill him just like a common criminal. Yeshua's got nothing. You see, I thought I was a part of something bigger than myself. I thought I was going to be the one to help my people. And I thought Yeshua was going to be the one to do it. But he didn't. He spent all his time with these other people, and all these other people asked for forgiveness. And he gave it to them. The poor people who had no money, people who couldn't walk, he forgave them. What was he thinking doing all that for them? How could we make an impact, Yeshua? And now he's going to die, and I can't ask for forgiveness. I can't, it's too late. He had no plan B. There was no option after this. It was just his way, and then he seemed to know where he was going, and we thought this is good, but now it's done. I'm done. I got no friends. I can't go back to the disciples. I can't go back to the temple. I tried to. I took the money they gave me, the 30 pieces. I brought it back to the temple and I threw it in there saying, that's blood money. I don't want it anymore. But now they just know me as a traitor. The Romans don't care about me. There was one other thing he said. He said, I'm going to be betrayed. And it would be better that the one who betrayed me was never born. And maybe he was right. Perhaps there's some way from beyond the grave he could do something for someone. But for me, Yeshua, Rabbi, perhaps not. Perhaps not. Perhaps not.